Welcome, and thanks for joining us for this virtual career speaker series. We're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month and Construction Month by interviewing outstanding professionals in their field. Today, we'll visit with Ben Galvan, who is the president of Civil Corps in Victoria. Ben will tell us about taking the road to becoming a professional registered civil engineer and beyond as the founder and president of his own firm. Also joining us from Civil Corps is Michael Parkinson. Michael is a senior GIS, which stands for Geographic Information Systems specialist, and also a surveyor in training. The session is being recorded and will be available in YouTube shortly. Please type any questions in the chat. Without further ado, I'm going to turn the session over to Ben and Michael.
Thank you, Kathy. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Ben Galvan, and I am the owner of Civil Corps. Civil Corps is an engineering and land surveying company with our corporate office here in Victoria. We also have offices in Corpus Christi, Houston, Fulshire, and Round Rock. A little bit about me. I graduated from Victoria High School in 1981. That's 40 years ago, and so I am a Victoria native, and I'm excited about a 40-year high school reunion that's going to be coming up next month. Graduated from Texas A&I University, which is now Texas A&M Kingsville, back in 1986 with my degree in civil engineering. And then after working for about a few years, I went back and got my master's degree from the University of Houston here in Victoria, and that was back in 1994. I'm a professional engineer and also a professional land surveyor. After I graduated with my civil engineering degree, I worked for the Texas Department of Transportation for about 14 years. After that, I worked with a consultant firm for another 8 years before I started Civil Corps back in 2008. As the owner and president of Civil Corps, my duties, I manage the overall operations of our business. We have a little over 110 employees with our 5 offices. And so I stay busy with just the overall business operations and get involved with the projects as much as I can. As a company, we provide civil engineering services, land surveying, construction inspection services. We work with developers, we work with cities, counties in the state of Texas. And so we also work all over the state of Texas. We've had projects from down in the valley to up to Amarillo, going to El Paso and into Beaumont. Sometimes we've had these projects going on all at the same time. So we've got field crews that are all over the state, burning the miles on Texas highways. Some of the projects that I've worked on locally that y'all might be familiar with include Loop 463 across the Guadalupe River Bridge. And this was a project that I worked on when I was with TxDOT. And this was a brand new project, a loop that was completed around Victoria across the river. Brand new location, so it was a really cool project to be able to work on. And it's being used by many, many drivers these days. The Sam Houston Drive reconstruction, that was a project with the city of Victoria. That was about a $24 million project with the city, something that we completed about 8 years ago or so. John Stackbar Drive was another big project that we did with the city, the Glasgow Street reconstruction. And then more recently, we completed the Plasto Benavides project for the city of Victoria. And that's a project that goes from Salem Road back out towards the Lowe's and the Walmart. So it's a bypass back. And that project's going to provide additional development within the city over the next several years. So those are some really cool projects to work on. And that kind of leads me into the question about what I like working about my job. What's the best thing I like about my job? And I really enjoy working on projects from a conceptual design to a final construction. As a civil engineer and as a surveyor, we get to design and build projects that many people will use for a very long time. That's family and friends and just the general public get to utilize these projects that we get to work on. So it's a very gratifying field. I've had a very gratifying career, and I've been very, very fortunate to be where I am. But right now, I would like to turn it over to Michael Parkinson. He's going to give you a presentation on GIS. Michael will tell you what GIS does and what role he has within Civil Corps. Michael wears dual hats in our office. He is a senior GIS specialist, but he is also a surveyor in training, and he can tell you a little bit about that as well. And that's on the survey side. And he'll actually be testing for his RPLS, which is his registration as a surveyor, and that'll happen next week. So we're wishing him well in that endeavor, and I'm sure he's going to do well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael to tell you about GIS. Michael.
Thanks, Ben. As Kathy and Ben mentioned, my name is Michael Parkinson. I'm a senior GIS specialist here at Civil Corps in the Victoria office. A little about me. I've been doing this for approximately 12 years. I graduated from Hallettsville High School just down the road in Victoria, just down the road from Victoria. I was born in Victoria, so I'm not quite but raised in Hallettsville, not quite the local boy that Ben is, but pretty close. Let's see. So I've been doing this for 12 years. I went to I have a degree in GIS from Texas A&M University. I graduated from there in 2009. So that's a little bit about my background. So the main question a lot of people ask me when I tell them what I do is, what is GIS? And it's kind of a difficult thing to explain because it's involved in so many different businesses and used in so many different ways. A lot of people think that it's making maps, picking the colors of the map and making pretty displays. That's part of it, and that's the cartography aspect of GIS, but there's a lot more to it than just that. There's a lot of data analysis. There's a lot of thinking that has to go into it. And in essence, GIS is the science of where things are and how those things interact. And there's a lot of ways that is executed within many fields. And there's the technical aspect of it is how all of this information that is available out there in the world is stored, how it is captured, how it is analyzed, how it is viewed, how it is shared, what people do with that information that has to do with space and where things are. So why did I choose GIS? I started off at A&M as a chemical engineering student, and I was not a very good student, to be honest. I did not spend enough time studying and being disciplined and doing what I had to do to make good grades in the engineering department. And so I knew I wasn't going to make it very long in as an engineer. But I'd always loved geography. I always loved history, and I always loved science and technology. And I found that GIS kind of combines all those things into one discipline. And so that was the big appeal for me, and it had a practical application as well. So, it was just something that really spoke to me and really drew me to it. And I have loved that decision ever since. So who uses GIS? Who are these people out here that are using all of this? And any business you can think of really at some level is going to be using and utilizing GIS to some degree, some more than others, but oil and gas is a huge user of GIS. Where pipelines and wells and all these oil field activity is located is a huge deal. That's one of probably, at least in Texas, the major user of GIS is going to be in the oil and gas industry. Government entities at the state level, at the county level, even at the city level, depending on the size of the city, use GIS to show a whole very wide variety of things. For example, the map in the background is here in Victoria. That is the appraisal district. They keep track of tax information, so who pays taxes on what, and what jurisdictions are taxing property owners to build, roads, schools, hospitals, stuff like that. And this is an example of their online map. So you can go to the Victoria County CAD website and you can pull up their property search map, and you can zoom around in the whole county and click on each one of these parcels is a piece of property that someone owns. This one is the McCoys at Salem Road and Loop 463. And you can click on the details and you can see the tax history of that property and how much they pay in taxes, how much the county has valued that property. There's a whole bunch of information in the background that's just not a map, right? So there's a lot of information behind that map as well in various layers. Transportation and civil engineering. Civil engineering uses GIS a lot, and we're pulling information from a ton of different sources to work on these projects to determine design parameters. A lot of it is preliminary before survey gets out there. Your GIS is kind of your first step because it doesn't take a lot of field work to find information, and that's kind of on the front end. How projects get started is typically with some sort of GIS data. Transportation, TxDOT uses GIS like crazy too. All of their projects, they have a ton of information that comes from survey and engineering, and they use GIS to store a whole lot of that stuff in their own GIS systems. And we can go retrieve it and use it in our projects, and we supply them GIS data as well when our projects are wrapped up. Emergency response. All of the 911 addressing is based off of GIS systems. So when you call 911 for an emergency, all of your addresses are built on a GIS system so that emergency services can get to the correct address and supply that service to people who need it. Real estate obviously is another one that's kind of tied to surveying. Real estate development, realtors, when they are deciding, or when a company is deciding to buy property somewhere, they do a ton of homework to try to figure out where is the best place to build, which properties meet their criteria, and you can sort through all of that and analyze all of that through a GIS system. So it's very big in real estate as well. And there's a whole bunch more that, like I said, almost every business uses GIS to some extent, but these are the main ones, and these are some of the ones that I've actually worked in myself and I have a little experience with. So what do I do as far as like Ben mentioned, I wear a couple of different hats here, but the main hat I wear is definitely the GIS hat. So from a GIS perspective, what I do is I gather data from various sources in support of our projects. I take that data, I compile it all together, I manage that data. We can manipulate it and analyze it and come up with useful information that will help support our projects and move projects forward, help us make good decisions from a management standpoint and from a technical standpoint, and that allows us to share that information as well. So we can hand over to our clients GIS data that has everything about our project in it, and they can open it and see it and interact with it in the same way that we do. So in the background here, these are examples of layers. That's a very common term in GIS. So you have points layers, you have line layers, you have polygon layers, you have land use layers. There's just all of this data can be layered together and compared and analyzed all at once. And here's an example of a GIS project. This is a TxDOT project in Colorado County on Interstate 10, and it was about 18 miles long. And we use GIS for this, for project management, to help track all of our survey operations, basically from start to finish. From the beginning of the project, we have to get permission to survey on people's properties. So we keep track of who has said yes and who has told us to go away. We use it to track ownership, because we need to make sure that, if ownership changes, that we are showing those changes on our documents that we will be handing over when TxDOT is ready to purchase the property for the highway project. It keeps track of contact information. Basically, any information that is useful to the project, we can track in a map, and it makes people are visual learners. So it really helps to have this information visualized in a meaningful way. And this particular one was in Google Earth, and I know a lot of people are familiar with Google Earth and comfortable with it, and it's a great tool, free tool for GIS. So what do I do from a surveying standpoint? It's very similar to a GIS standpoint, except the data that we're getting typically is going to be much more precise and accurate. But we're treating it in almost the same way. We're still using a GIS to capture, to store that information, to manage it, to manipulate it, to share it. It's just the source of it is coming from the field that we have, our guys in the field have surveyed. And some common types of surveys, survey data and surveys that we're going to be using on a day-to-day basis is a boundary survey. That's where your property lines are. That's very important, and you need a RPLS to tell you that. Topographic survey, that's basically what features are out there on the ground. Man-made, natural, just what's there. Is there a ditch there? Is there a road there? Are there trees there? Is there a river there? That's topographic surveying, what the existing ground looks like out in the field where our project is going to be happening. And the last one that is common is construction surveying. So when anything is built, a surveyor will typically go out there and stake points where things are supposed to be built based off of an engineering design. So we go out there and our building corners are supposed to be in one spot, or some foundations are supposed to be in one spot. So we'll go out there and we will stake that for the guys who are actually going to be constructing all of these things. And this is an example of a survey project. This is a topographic survey of a FM road in Cleburne, Texas. And this is this is survey data that you're looking at here. These are ditches, driveways, fences, all the utilities, because they're going to be going through here and most likely expanding this road. So we need to know where all of this stuff is, so the engineers can design around all of these things and make sure everything will fit on the new road. And this was actually, I also flew this with the drone, so we have nice background pictures to look at, and it helped our survey crews identify new changes. So if we missed a driveway, we could go look at it in the photos and say, hey, we missed this driveway. We need to send survey crews back out there to go survey it. And all of the lines and points and polygons that are drawn in CAD in a survey can be converted into GIS and stored in a GIS format as well. Come on. So another thing I do here, and it's Ben was talking about, what do you enjoy most about your job? This would definitely be it for me, is getting to fly the drones, just because it's such a cool technology. Everybody is just enamored with drones, and they're a huge industry right now. And it's essentially a big toy. So I get to go out there and play with a big fancy toy, but also it does serve a really, really valuable use. And we can gather data with the drone 10 times faster than we can on the ground with a survey crew. And it's not always the best tool for the job, but in a lot of places and a lot of applications, it is a really useful tool. It's very efficient. And so we can gather data with the drone, and the drone in the picture actually is equipped with a LiDAR scanner, which is essentially a laser scanner that captures millions and millions of points over the course of a flight on a project. And that's really the cutting edge technology as far as drone surveying goes is LiDAR, but there's also photogrammetry, which is essentially the drone takes a bunch of pictures from different angles, from different elevations, and we run those through software, and the software stitches all those photos together, creates one single aerial photo, but also it is able to compute X, Y, and Z coordinates off of each pixel from the photo. So we can actually take that and build a model out of it that we can extract survey information from and hand it off to our engineers for design, plus the pretty pictures to look at. This does require time in the field, and I enjoy that as well. Just sitting in an office. I spend most of my time in an office, but it is nice to get out and be outside. I do like being outside. So that is one of my favorite things about it, and it's just the coolest thing that we do, I think, at Civil Corps is the drones. But I'm pretty biased. This is an example of a LiDAR scan that I did out in Bloomington. And you can see we're mainly interested in building a rail spur. And this is the railroad track in the center there. It's on a trestle bridge going across going across a creek. And so I flew approximately 4 miles. That was a 400-foot wide corridor, composed of 4 different flights. Before we even get out there to fly, we have to set survey control, which is essentially a point on the ground that allows us to check our X, Y, and Z values from the LiDAR to ensure that it is accurate and in the correct place. And we use this point cloud. It's like this is just a small sample of literally millions and millions of points that we captured. And we use those points to create a 3D model of the existing ground out there that the engineers will use to base their design for a new railroad track on. So what does it take to do what I do? Requirements. There is no licensure for GIS. There is for surveying, as Ben mentioned earlier. You need a license to practice surveying in the state of Texas, but you do not need a license to practice GIS. College is not required, but it definitely helps because that's where you learn all of these concepts. You learn how to use a lot of the software. GIS is software driven, it's technology driven, so you're just not going to learn that on your own very quickly without having a little bit of educational background on all those things. There are college level certificates, there are associate's degrees, and there are bachelor's degrees available at most colleges in Texas. The GISP is a certification. I have that. It just says, you know, I'm a GIS professional. I've been doing this for a certain amount of time. I have a certain education, and I have a proficiency that is from an exam that I took. So those 3 things combine to make a portfolio that you submit to an organization that certifies you as a GIS professional. To fly the drone, you do, to fly it commercially, meaning if you're going to fly a drone to make money, you do have to be certified by the FAA. That's the Federal Aviation Administration, same administration that handles pilot licenses and everything. If you're a hobbyist and you're just flying for fun, you can fly without it. But if you're going to be making money off it, you do need to have the certification, and it just ensures that you are competent. You understand all of the rules, that you're not going to fly over a busy airport. You're not going to do anything dangerous. You're being responsible, and that the public is not at risk by you operating a drone. People skills. People skills are very important, especially in surveying, because we serve the public. People are always coming to us, asking us to survey their property. We have to get on properties that may not be our client's property. So we have to deal with asking permission to get on people's land, and sometimes, you know, they may not like that. And so having people skills to kind of deal with that is very important. Not all of the landowners speak English, so having being bilingual, being able to speak Spanish, especially in this area of Texas, is also a big plus. So some of the higher education options for GIS, like I said earlier, most universities offer some sort of GIS degree plans, whether they're in the College of Geoscience or the College of Science or Geography. Most schools in Texas that I know of, the big universities, do offer some sort of degree plans in GIS. The 2 highest regarded are Texas A&M Corpus Christi and Texas State. At least when I was in school, those were 2 of the big ones. A&M Corpus is also a very good surveying school, but they also have a geomatics program that is top notch. That is, you know, very GIS centric. Texas State has a really good geography program there as well. But there are many junior colleges and community colleges that offer GIS certificates and associate's degrees, and kind of offer you a good starting place if you're planning to move on to a bigger university. There are definitely options available at some of the smaller schools. So what are some of the career roles that you can fulfill as a GIS person? So there's basically 4 that there may be some more that I missed that are kind of minor, but these are, in my opinion, are the 4 main ones. A GIS technician, they're a technician. So they're out there using their technical skills to do data entry. They're taking data, getting out there looking for data from different places. They're processing that data. They're getting it prepared to store. So they're entering it into databases. They're entering it into various GIS storage formats, and they're doing a lot of the front end manipulation on that data. So they're doing like the crunching of numbers and looking at different processes and analyzing data against other data. at an entry level capacity. And then there's a GIS analyst, which kind of segues in from the technician. These guys are mostly doing an analysis on data. They're doing a lot of technical conversions and going from certain formats to another that requires a little more skill and conceptual understanding than maybe a technician has. And a GIS specialist, to me, is kind of like just a catch-all. They do a little bit of everything. They can do the technician role, they can do the analyst role, and whatever else kind of gets, whatever special tasks GIS-wise they get assigned to them. They kind of do it all. And then there's a very specific technical aspect of it from an IT standpoint, from a development standpoint. If you're into programming, if you're into web development, there are GIS programmers and developers. Because all of this technology is based off of, computer technology, you really have to have people that know how to write code. You have to have people who know how to build GIS viewers online and know JavaScript and a lot of those other languages that I don't know a whole lot about, but those guys are very important because that's what drives GIS, is the technology. So you need people who understand that and can continue to develop those technologies into something better and better. So as far as compensation goes, if you're in the GIS field, what can you kind of expect? And there's a professional organization called EURESA. I am a member of EURESA, and I actually participated in this 2017 salary survey. This is the latest one they have, so these numbers are a little old, but probably still fairly accurate. There were a little over 3,000 responses to this survey, and they found that the average salary of someone in GIS was about $70,857. Now that includes entry-level and upper-level roles, so there's a wide range of compensation in this, but on average, it's about that number. And they also found that is up about 15% from 2010. So it has been trending upwards, and especially as this GIS continues to grow, which it should, and it has been growing just because everyone's using it now, those numbers are going to continue to climb. So you can expect a decent career out of it, especially if you can get into surveying and you can get into some of the drone stuff that's also growing so fast. There's a lot of opportunities in the field of GIS. And that's it.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
So Kathy, we'll turn it back over to you and see if you have any questions for us.
Thank you both. Great introductory information. Michael, back to you. What type of challenges have you found in your career?
What type of challenges have I found in my career?
Yes, sir.
So one of the challenges is, I was talking about the GISP certification, and it's a challenge for the GIS industry as a whole. Is, we work so closely with engineers and surveyors, and those guys are all licensed and have a very good crediting body, statewide, on the state level, that kind of gives them, legitimacy. And the GIS field has kind of gotten a bad rap for being, inaccurate or the stuff they do, maybe not as to the highest standards as engineers and surveyors. So that's always one of the challenges is, how do you validate yourself as a GIS professional as far as your peers in engineering and surveying go. And the GISP, it does help. And then, that's one of the main reasons I got it, is because it does lend some, more credibility to you as a GIS professional. But that's one of the challenges, and I think at some point maybe GIS is going to have to move into something more similar, where maybe maybe there is going to be a licensing requirement at some point, similar to an SIT or to a surveyor or an EIT in engineering. And that's one of the challenges I've seen, is just trying to find that same validation that a lot of the professionals that we work with have.
And Kathy, I'll add to that, as far as, Michael was talking about, how his work blends with what engineers and surveyors do. And, from with an engineer's hat, I can tell you that, this GIS is something that we use daily. We go into Michael and ask him to provide all sorts of data for us, whether it's for preliminary, type work, or it's for, finalizing projects and delivering a GIS product that we can give to clients that they can really see easily. I mentioned on our last presentation, civil engineering, that a lot of our final deliverables are not even paper products. And so we deliver a lot of products just electronically. And so if we have a client that has Google Earth on their computer, we can upload a whole design file onto Google Earth. And that's how the client can see it. And they can see the project directly on Google Earth. And it makes it so much easier to follow and to understand. And it adds a lot of value to that project, just the visibility of how that project is. And the other part is, like, even utilities are such a big part of the GIS process, and being able to understand where are the utility lines in the real world, finding those on a Google Earth map. You can relay that information to the client, to the utility owner, and everyone understands what the issue is and how that relates to a project. So even though right now there's not a license required for it, it's probably something that's going to come, because it's just being used in our field just more and more and more every day, and it's going to continue to get stronger, and the data is going to get more accurate. In the old days, you could use a GPS receiver and have an accuracy of plus or minus 10 foot. You can actually get that accuracy with your iPhone with some GIS applications. But that technology and that equipment gets better and better and better. And, it probably won't be long before we really get some really good accuracy with just some very minimal equipment. And it's just going to be great for the field. For the GIS field, it's going to be great for engineering and for the surveying field. And they all work together.
As you both look back, were there any classes that you wish you could have or would have taken in high school to help you prepare for your college or into your career?
Yes. I wish there was, I got into GIS, and then as soon as I started working more with engineers and surveyors, I realized that I had no skills in drafting AutoCAD or MicroStation or whatever CAD software. I wish I had more previous experience, at least, being comfortable in a CAD environment. Even in college, I didn't have access to a lot of those classes. So I know at some high schools, they do start you off. CAD drafting classes are an option, and I wish that was something that was available to me looking back.
Yeah, it's ironic that the same answer was on the civil engineering side. Catherine mentioned the same thing, that drafting and CAD applications was a big part of something that would really help improve skills and career development, if you're able to take that at an early stage.
Mm-hmm.
It's important for students to understand too that we never stop learning. What type of continuing education requirements or recertification professions required?
So for GIS, I have to recertify every 3 years for my GISP, and that includes continuing education, contributions to the field, and experience. So they factor in all of those things. So attending seminars, doing some WebEx learning, whatever module some of the software companies offer to learn new skills. That's constantly something I'm looking at and having to keep in mind, that I need to fulfill those continuing education requirements. Surveyors and engineers are the same. They have to have 12, at least surveyors need 12 credit hours of continuing education per year. So that includes going to conferences and learning new things and hearing speakers talk about various subjects on surveying. So you're constantly having to keep learning, and this is a technology-driven field, and technology changes so fast that it's just part of your day-to-day job. Is you're gonna have to learn new things. You're gonna have to figure out things. I'm constantly, people are bringing me puzzles to solve for them, and I really enjoy that. But you really have to you're really a perpetual student. As long as you're in your career, you're going to have to keep up with everything and continue learning every day.
Are there internships or apprenticeships that are available for GIS?
Yes, a lot. There are a lot of internships available. When I worked in the oil and gas business, every summer we had interns come from various colleges all over Texas, come to Houston to our office and intern. Even when I was in college, there were postings all the time in the geosciences building for interns at the city of College Station, at the city of Bryan. Professors often had leads from, people from outside the university asking for good interns. So they had information as well. The academic advisors, the deans, they all had leads on people asking for interns. So there are a lot of internships available out there.
Kathy, I'll tell you, here at Civil Corps, we have not hired any GIS interns in the past. But as I mentioned, the GIS applications are just increasing with our projects, and that is probably something that as we start getting more projects that are going to require GIS applications, something that we'd be looking into. And we got a couple that are lined up that are going to be heavily GIS intensive. Michael knows which ones that we're talking about in the Houston area. And so there actually may be some intern opportunities for us here at Civil Corps before too long.
It also kind of begs the question, since this is a relatively new field, are there many universities that offer this as a degree program in the state of Texas or elsewhere?
Yes. I pretty much every university in Texas that I can think of, at least the big ones offer GIS coursework and GIS degree plans. And even the community colleges in the Houston area, I know they offer certifications. You can go get a GIS certificate, that helps you in your career. A lot of the junior colleges offer GIS centric, associate's degrees, or if you're starting off college at a junior college and planning to transfer to a bigger university, there are courses there that you can take that'll help you transfer over and get a good head start on your degree if you decide to move on.
Well, great. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I think that's all the questions that we have. Do either of you have any comments that you'd like to set forth with student leaders?
I would just say, as far as surveying goes and GIS goes, we're looking at a shortage of surveying professionals, and that extends into the GIS field as well coming up. There are not a lot of surveyors, not a lot of people becoming surveyors, and a lot of the surveyors that are practicing right now are looking at retirement in the next 10, 15 years. So there's going to be a pretty big demand for those careers. And when I was in high school, I had heard of surveying, but I really didn't know what it was. I was somebody that told you where your property line was. But I would encourage, if you're interested in it, to look into it. And it's a really rewarding field, and there's going to be a big demand for it. So it could pay off for you in the long run for sure.
Yeah, and Kathy, that's going to be our next segment. We'll be on surveyors, and we'll have Brandon Absher, who's one of our project managers here in our Victoria office. We'll be giving that presentation, and he'll hit on all those topics that Michael mentioned. So I just want to say that we appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to you and to the kids out in high school, and we certainly encourage you to hopefully we've made this presentation a little bit exciting for you and get you interested in GIS or civil engineering or surveying. These are great fields to be in. They're self-gratifying with the work that we do, and it's the money and the pay is good, and it's good job stability. So hopefully some of y'all will be thinking about careers in this field. Kathy, I think you're muted.
Thank you so much. So, again, thanks, Ben and Michael, for taking the time to share about your educational and career experiences. We really appreciate the information about this emerging career fair, and plus your openness and willingness to share tips about how to be successful. We want to thank those out in the audience, and a reminder that this recording is posted to YouTube so that you can view it again or at any time. And please, teachers and others, feel free to share this with some other folks that might be interested in a career in civil engineering. So we just say thanks again to our presenters, and we wish everyone a good day.
Thank you.
Kathy.